Hello, UK Crime Book Club. I'm here with Heleen, and it is Heleen, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm sure that's what Rob
Kist.
told me. I was talking to Rob Parker, and he mentioned he'd read a great book, and I thought your name was pronounced Heleen, and then he said Heleen, and I thought Rob's probably right.
Yeah, no,
So
it's the Dutch version of Helen. It's nothing special, but it is Heleen, and I respond to most things that start with an H, frankly.
yeah, I get called Kaz's name sometimes, so we just nod and smile usually. Introduce yourself better than I did and show off your book. I can see the gorgeous cover of What I Hid From You above your head.
Yes, so I'm Heleen Kist, and I am Dutch, but I have been in Scotland since 2001, so over 20 years now, married to a Scotsman. And I write suspense novels that are kind of on the periphery of crime. And the latest one, which is What I Hid From You, is out the day after tomorrow, which is very exciting. And it actually takes place in the same place as In Servitude, also in Glasgow, also in Pollokshields, South Side. And Stay Mad Sweetheart, which was my second, is more of a corporate thriller set in a data science center in Edinburgh.
And we've got Agnieszka saying hello already. Hi, Aggie, who we recently met in person, and she's
Ah,
just blooming lovely. She's lovely.
so wonderful.
So tell us a little about What I Hid From You.
It's the story of Radha Bakshi, who is
Love Rada.
Radha Bakshi, who is a dentist practicing in Glasgow. She has a clinic with her husband that she took off from her father. And essentially, she is a working mom, sandwich generation, very busy, but then she is also had a patient die in her chair, which has left her quite traumatized, which was amplified by the investigation of the General Dental Council, which, if anybody works in the medical profession that's watching, they'll get sweaty palms just thinking about that. And so poor Radha becomes very anxious and traumatized and starts taking Valium and sadly becomes addicted to that. It's not the easiest thing to get your hands on, and in trying to not get too much suspicion on her own prescription practices, she lands in the menacing clutches of Glasgow's underworld. And then she
That
gets
is a
out.
very good description of it. I will point out that when I say further on in the interview how much I feel like myself and Rada have in common, it's not the Valium.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, no
Yeah, and I
criminal
guess I
underworld.
experience either. Just making that clear.
So we've got a few hellos already. So Agnieszka, Megan, Colin, Kaz. Kaz is asking, will you be at Harrogate this year?
I will. I will. I'm very excited. I went once before in 2019, and I hardly knew anyone. So I knew some of the bloggers, and I hung out with them. And this time, like so many people that I know and so many people that I wanted to meet are going. It's very exciting.
Myself and Kaz are going on the Saturday, so we're just going for the day. We cannot wait. I was supposed to go in, I took a year off work, thought I'd write a book, go to Harrogate, go and do different things. The year was 2020.
Yeah. No,
Didn't happen. None of it happened,
none of
but
it.
it was fun. It was a nice time with my family overall, Not not that we're grateful in any way for the pandemic, not at all, but nice to have some time with family when we could. And a lot of us under one roof here, so it was quite a busy time. Um, and Kaz also wants to know what's the best thing you've read so far this year.
Oh, gosh, it's June.
Do you get to read much? Do you get to read a lot?
It varies. It really varies. And I sometimes when I'm writing, I don't read because I don't want to be influenced. So that takes out a big chunk of time
Yeah.
already. And then other times I'm humbled, that people want me to read their books pre-publication and maybe provide a quote. I read, there you go, this one very recently, Caroline England's The Sinner, which I think came out yesterday. And that's really got a lot of simmering resentment there that you just kind of want to eat up. And I read Bingo Hall Detectives by Jonathan Whitelaw, and
Yeah.
I am still reading Alex Charles The Lie She Told. No, that's not what it's called. It's The Loyal Friend.
It is The Loyal Friend, yeah. Oh, bless you. Who's that? Donna saying, hello, beautiful ladies. Hello. Oh, nice. And hello to Leslie Lloyd as well, who's watching.
Hi, Leslie.
So I want to start with, I love the fact that Rada is a dentist. It's a completely different point of view. I'm not sure I've ever read a book from a dentist's point of view before.
It's probably
So
a
I
reason.
thought that was really, no, I thought it was really interesting because you're looking at this busy mum. You know, she's a dentist working long hours. She has a husband and a son and a lovely dad, who I think is probably my favourite character. Can't not love him, but they're all a great bunch. And just seeing how many things that she is involved in. You know, there's the community of mums. You know, she's involved quite heavily in Minesh's school, and there's the local community around them. And obviously, you've talked about the criminal underbelly around them as well. I mean, that is a lot for a person to take.
It is, and the reason I came up with a dentist is because also what hit me. My sister-in-law is a dentist, so that helped with the facts also. But um, most people really hate the dentists. And I thought, well, what a terrible, you dedicate years of your life to learning how to do this. You have this job and you're actually saving people and helping people, but actually, most people sit there traumatized by you. And that's where I got the idea of actually, what if the dentists were traumatized? And how do they feel about the fact that nobody likes them, which I didn't actually put in the book because I don't mind my dentist because it's my sister-in-law. Like before, I was traumatized as a child, but also I have a posse of mums that we used to have breakfast with occasionally before the pandemic and before the kids all got a little bit bigger. And about 2/3 of them were dentists as well. I live in an area called Pollokshields in Glasgow, which is very multicultural, but also has a lot of medical professionals. Like all my neighbors were doctors, dentists, whatever. And so it made sense to me. And over breakfast, we would hear stories of their lives, obviously, which are stressful enough, but then also some of the stories of misconduct that they had heard and gossip. I mean, one dentist had run a brothel apparently and got caught doing that. So
Okay.
yeah, and then lastly, I think that whole Valium addiction thing is quite topical. There's a lot of substance abuse problems among medical professionals in general. More alcohol than drugs, but drugs also, and certainly in the US that's the case. And so I wanted to shine a light on that also. But yeah, I think when I started talking to people about it, they're like, "Oh, a dentist. I'm not sure I want to read about it." Maybe I should have chosen something else.
No, I was pleasantly surprised when I started reading, and Rada's a dentist, and you open with drip feeding different things that we later find out bits and pieces, and obviously it blows wide open further on. But I thought it was really interesting, and I don't feel like it's not textbooky. It's not, she might occasionally have a patient in the chair, but then you're drifting off to what she's thinking about at the time. It's not all, we're not literally looking into the patient's mouths all the time through the
No,
whole
and you
book.
don't.
So
I mean, it's not gory. There's no dental trauma in there.
no.
Horror.
But even the relationships within the dentist they're an interesting bunch. So she works with her husband. We've got the receptionist who I still can't decide if she's likable or not. she's not unlikable,
Yeah.
just a bit work shy, which
Yeah.
adds to Rada's pressure.
Well, and this is where I dare call it a psychological thriller from time to time because it is very much from her point of view.
Mm.
And so you get her judginess, you get her anxiety, her view on things, and she might think that Pauline is work shy, but is she really? I don't know. it may just be because everything is falling onto her all the time that she just feels that, notices that a little bit more. But I think it is very much her viewpoint. And when you have 2 points of view like this book has, it's got Radha and her father, it is really how they see each other. And there's a big contrast there. So it hammers
Hmm.
home this idea that, she's seeing the world in her particular way.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it, because as soon as you've said that, you think, well, she is handling the patients and she is handling the calls, and maybe it's easier for Rada to be in that moment of, it's just easier if I do it myself. I'll worry about it less, and I won't have to do it twice. So yeah, seeing it through a different side.
And that's really the theme of the book, other than stay away from drugs, um, is
Yeah.
it's a story of a woman who needs to ask for help, and that's her lesson. And part of that has a lot to do with, and I see it in my friend, and I see it in friends, and I see it in a lot of professional women, and I've done it myself, which is this "I'll do it my bloody self" then attitude when things aren't going exactly how you would do them, and therefore you need to take charge. And that's something that really you need to learn to let go, because otherwise you'll go nuts. And that's really what I want to tell Radha, with this book. It's like, well, you just delegate, let people do things. Don't just think that you need to do everything, because people are perfectly competent.
It's really interesting as well to think about the way you've shown Rada's personality in different situations. The way we all are. We might be a bit more laid back with a friend over coffee. A bit more ourselves at home around our family. The way we act at work, the way we act with on the school run. So many different facets to a personality that you've just shone a light on brilliantly. I was saying to you before we went live that I was reading it and I was thinking, yeah, that's me. That's me. Those, you know, all the different things that she's doing and the things that she's feeling and the emotions and her reaction to things. And then when she takes a step back and looks and thinks, maybe wasn't the best way to have done that. It's so realistic. You just get this feeling that you just want to sit her down and give her a hug and, just listen. That's what you feel like. You feel like she's your friend.
Well, that's really lovely to hear, Samantha. Thank you. That's what I try to
So,
achieve.
well, you've achieved it brilliantly. I made a note. I didn't want to forget this. I enjoyed the perceived role reversals of some of the characters, when in fact he's just showing a side that we don't always see.
Yeah, yeah. I think the whole kind of thinking you have to mother everybody all the time, and you actually don't. And it's again fine to let go. And the other thing that I wanted to do, and I mean, this is starting to sound a little bit like an uplit, lovely family story, where of course there is crime
It's
involved. But
not.
the other thing I wanted to do is to not have an evil husband. The husband is just nice guy.
Yeah.
They have a lovely marriage. They have sex. Because that's the other thing. No women over 40 have sex ever in books. It's like, we have sex. And sorry if I've just shocked somebody here now, but
I'm sure people know. If they don't,
yeah, here's the
maybe need to
news.
find out.
People
Yeah.
have sex. And but he's just a little clueless because he also works hard, and so he has his hobbies and he goes off and does that, and he doesn't realize quite how much pressure Radha feels she's under. And he's just a little clueless, but he's a nice guy. And if you're expecting him to be the baddie, I've just spoiled it for you. But it's
I think it's quite clear early on that he's not the baddie.
I think I just wanted to have a normal family, and
Yeah,
then crap happens to them, right?
absolutely. One of the role reversal kind of things that I was talking about is how we always think about the woman's point of view from things, but actually, Gunbear, is that how I'm pronouncing his name?
Yeah, good beer. Yeah.
He There's a really sweet scene where Manesh calls him Grandad. So, do you remember that part? Do you want to tell us about that?
Cool. So Manesh is Radha's son, and he is 15. And Gunbir is Radha's father, and he's in his 60s, an elderly gentleman with diabetes, and they do have a really cute relationship that is displayed there, and you get to hear Gunbir's life story because Manesh has homework and he needs to ask his dad about immigrating to the UK from Uganda. He's one of the the Indians who came via Uganda to the UK, and they do kind of everybody cares for each other in different ways, and what I think, when you read the blurb of the book, it sometimes talks about how it's about obviously the insidious substance abuse among medical professionals, but also about how familial relationships change as children grow up. And I think it's that, who's caring for who right now question.
So I found it interesting that Nanny and Nana are the traditional male and female names for grandparents.
Yeah,
And
I did obviously having presented a South Asian or a family of South Asian descent, I did a lot of research, and I stumbled across that actually, and I thought it was a nice example when the childcare expects the grandmother because it's Nana, and it turns out to be the grandfather.
yeah.
That these are tiny little bits where that's you could call that racism. It's not. It's just a lack of understanding and knowledge of that culture. And so I have a few instances throughout the book of misunderstandings, but also just of a little bit everyday racism that I perceive. So I
Yeah.
felt if I can see it, then I should be able to showcase it for the readers, and I'm sure the character, experiences it much more often than we care to think about.
I want to know how much of this you knew before you started, how much you planned, just because of how this is a question, a lot of authors have been asked this, but it's the way that things weave in before they unravel and the attention to detail. It made me wonder how much was in the first draft, how much was planning, how much was added in afterwards, like the details like the nanny nana.
So I am the most extreme plotter. All the other authors make fun of me. Even Marion Todd, who has big spreadsheets, I am worse in that I write an outline of about 13,000 words, so a sixth of the book, and it's basically the summary of the book. And within that, there will be all the little foreshadowing, all the red herrings, everything that needs to happen that you then need to pick up on again after. And that period can take quite a long time to do, as you can imagine. But I do enjoy it a lot, and it's problem solving, and that's what I do in my day job. So I like to problem solve. And then you start writing, and then something will come up, or you look something up. So the nanny nana thing that came while I was writing, I didn't know that at the time, but certainly most of the research I had done in advance. And then I am militant about following the outline. Uh, I have never had to move a chapter, and my developmental edits are quite minimal because I do all that thinking in advance. And so for me, the writing is about bringing it to life. It's about the challenge of, okay, here are the 5 things that I want in this scene. How does the dialogue need to go in a very natural way to get that person to say this, or for that to happen? And that again is then a mini problem solving exercise for each scene of how that sequence works. And so I know a lot of people say, I don't want to outline because then there's no more surprises when you're writing. For me, it's that it's still a problem solving exercise. And then the second draft tends to be just deepening the emotions just a little bit more, pushing beyond my comfort zone, or the normal. This is what happens. It's like really okay. Let's get more emotion. So there's a layer of emotion, and there's a layer of color that I bring in the second draft as well. So I make sure that the senses are used throughout. I make sure that everything, is just a little bit more detailed. So it's almost like I've got the sketch, the first drawing, and then the colored markers. That's kind of my process.
At any point as you were piling more and more things onto Rada, did you ever think, should I hold back a bit here? Or did you just decide to go all in?
Yeah, I felt I wanted it to be realistic that she would make some stupid decisions. That she would really get to a point where that would be credible. I don't want the reader to go, well, nobody would ever do that. You want to put so much pressure on that actually you could, and because it's in her voice as well, it's in the first person, you just can see all her thoughts and you can see why she would think that this is a good course of action. And so no, I needed to put a lot more pressure. What I didn't do this time, that I did have more of an in servitude, because in servitude is also ordinary woman gets accidentally embroiled with Glasgow's underworld in some ways. Is the gangsters in servitude are much more present. They're much more in your face, and they have a lot more scenes and dialogue together. I think because this is very much a mental pressure book, even though the gangsters are there and they are not being nice to her, they're not always there for the reader to see, but they're always there for Rada to feel. And so that's that extra tension there.
Yeah, and the amount of tension that comes from the overthinking of people involved. So there's some of it comes from Rada's innocence in certain situations. I don't want to say what any of the situations are because I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But her innocence and also her overthinking are kind of her biggest. She's against herself in a lot of situations.
And I'm a huge overthinker, so this is my therapy book.
Me too.
This is what I need to hear as well. Just stop.
So you talked a little bit about the research involved by just knowing people in different professions. And then you've touched on other research and how you found some lovely details. Were there any big things that really took a lot of extra research before you got writing, or things that you had to look up afterwards?
Not hugely. I think because again, I kind of knew what the book was going to be about, and she came to me almost fully formed. So living in this neighborhood, the kid goes to that school, which is my kid's school. I mean, I don't from a location perspective, I'm very lazy. My first and third book are basically my house and next door, and our school. And in servitude, there's also a bit in Perth, which is up in Scotland, which is where my in-laws are. So the house of the parents is actually my in-laws' house, and so I can be quite. I don't, I would never do historical fiction because it's way too much work. But from the location perspective, and then Stayman was in Edinburgh, where I also work, and it's in a sector where I work with data and stuff. But I think the dentistry isn't very involved, so that was fairly easy. I think the South Asian culture element was really, I wanted to make, she is British. She was born and raised here. So I don't have to go and make this huge attempt at creating that. But I did speak to some friends who are South Asian themselves, and to just say, what's the family dynamic like? What's it like? And I also wanted to make sure that there weren't too many stereotypes, which is something that we're very conscious of. And, like this whole idea of, oh, Asian parents are really pushy parents. They're quite happy for Manesh to want to be an actor, and everybody's expecting them to be pushing him to be a dentist too, and so there's that element. And then the drug side, as I said, is not out of personal experience, but I was very fortunate that a few people, having done a little appeal on Twitter, a few people contacted me quietly, and I was able to have a couple of chats about their experiences. What does it feel like? What does it feel like when you don't take it? How does it manifest itself? And I'm really, really pleased that some of the early feedback has been that I've captured that anxiety really well, because I'm very fortunate that it's not something I suffer from.
people are very generous when authors put shout outs. So have you done that before?
Um, maybe for little things, maybe, but not for a big topic like this, and a very personal topic, obviously,
Mm.
as well. It was my friend Radha, who, who completely disapproves of this Radha, because she's a doctor herself. Completely disapproves. But my friend Radha is the one who came up with the idea that there should be more aunties in the book. So the family dynamic was such that you see the parents and this and that, but then you have this whole group of the parents' friends who watch you and are involved in your life from very early on, which of course we all have, whether they're real aunties or uncles or not.
Mm.
But it was particularly helpful for the plot also because it adds another layer of pressure when you feel watched all the time.
How has it been for you from writing your debut to now? What do you think you've kind of learned along the way that might offer advice for other people?
Uh, it's a slog. So, well, I don't want to make it sound negative because obviously I wouldn't be doing it if there weren't, if there wasn't joy in it. But I think you need to be mindful that overnight success and big incomes and you can live off your writing and all of that. It's a little bit like winning the lottery, and
Mm.
it's really about plugging away and keeping at it. And you need to learn that resilience when you get your 6,000 rejections, and but also when people review your book and they have a problem with it, and you just have to go, well, okay, that's not a reflection on me personally. That's just a product I made. And the way I always put it when people say, how do you deal with your 1-star reviews? And I say, well, I don't like mango. I'm one of very few people who don't like mango. To me, it tastes of stomach bile, and apparently it's a genetic thing. Other people who have this also think it tastes of stomach bile. And so you could serve me the most beautiful mango salad or, fruit salad with mango in it, but I'm not going to like it. And that's no reflection on your beautiful salad. So I think that when you write a book and most people like it, and then the odd person says it's absolutely dire, the way I look at it is I've just served them mango.
Yeah, I know that the 1-star reviews are something that Chris McDonald, who I saw, was watching, and Jonathan Whitelaw is watching. So they play, I believe, 1-star superstar. I can't get my words out.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are some interesting things when you hear of the book cover was bent, or it turned up late, or the box was wet. Things that are nothing to do with the book. So it must be frustrating.
I can see
Just
why
kind of
people are
laugh at it.
frustrated, but as somebody, so in my professional, in my day job, I'm a strategy consultant, and part of what I do is work with online retailers also, and the data associated with that, and because customer experience. And I think that in a way, it is fair enough if somebody says, the Kindle didn't download properly, because ultimately what they are reviewing is the experience of purchasing this item as well as the item itself. And I know a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this, but this whole instant, oh, doesn't this people realize that this impacts the author? Yes, but what they are doing is they're warning other people that there may be a problem with this product, and that's fair enough. So I'm probably a lone voice here, just because I sit on the other
You are the first person who's given me that answer.
side.
Yeah. But it is an interesting point of view that they are actually looking at the product as a whole.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Kaz wants to know what you're working on at the moment.
I actually finished another book, which is on submission with my agent in Scotland, and we're hoping to find it a home. And then I am taking a little bit of time off to just see my son off to university and find accommodation, which in the Netherlands is really difficult, and that sort of stuff. So right now I am reading other people's books because I have a backlog. And I will probably pick up the pen or the keyboard again post August.
So you've been involved in other events as well. Obviously, you've done interviews before. You've been on a panel for us before. You've done lots of things, and you're also interested in Book Week Scotland. That you've done some events in your local library. So what was that like? Doing things. We've done a lot of online. So how does it differ being in person?
Well, in person is harder to organize and to get people to buy into. So the Book Week Scotland was interesting, and this is again coming back then to what tips do I have for other people. It Self promotion is very much part of the game, unless you're lucky
Mm.
enough to get one of the big five publishers, and you are the chosen title that they're going to put all the money behind. In which case, you can just not bother because your impact will be minimal. But obviously, I'm a fairly small author, and I need to make as much noise as I can. Luckily, I'm not very shy, as you can probably tell. But I just walked into my library once I'd written in Servitude. It's set in the area, and I went, "Hi," and I gifted them one. And then the guy who ran five libraries got in touch. He said, "Oh, this was really nice," and actually you came in just in time because they're looking for people. The program for Book Week Scotland's being presented, and would you like to do something with us? And I'm like, yes, please. And I was, in the Book Week Scotland's program next to Christopher Brookmeyer or something like that. It's like, yay, very authentic. Sent it to my mom. And then when I published, when Stay Now Sweetheart came out with Red Dog Press, I went back to the guy and I said, listen, we're launching this in November. That's Book Week Scotland. Would you like to host the launch? And so
Mm.
we actually held the launch in the library. I brought drinks myself because there was no bar. And I said, can I bring booze? And he's like, well, if you don't talk about it. And then I walked in with a box of champagne and appetizer, which obviously it looks like champagne. And I walked into the library, and there's a police officer standing there, and I'm like, oh, okay,
Mm.
I don't know what to do now. So we started serving the appetizer and the glasses and everything, and then when they left, he was like, okay, there's also booze. But I enjoy both. I think there's a certain intimacy, obviously, to in person. And but there's an accessibility to online that can't be denied, and it's great that everybody's here who wouldn't have come had this been an in-person thing.
Yeah, that's true because there's people who are all over the country. So yeah, this is the way to do it. Um, so I know that you sent out. I saw lots of lovely images on Twitter. The book. So what I hid from you and some sweets
Yes,
you sent out to different people.
just let me hold on. Sorry to disappear. So you can customize M&Ms. Here's a tip, promotional tip. You can go to mnm.com and you can have things printed. You can even have images printed, but they're so small that you couldn't do a book cover. And basically, the idea was that you would I have little gift bags. This is the big version that the book came in, but I had little gift bags, which obviously are like an Asian wedding favor. And it's, some of them said, hid from what I and you. So it was the title of the book. And then I put in a little note saying, don't do it, and signed Radha, so that you would wonder what it was that you weren't supposed to do with these little blue pills.
After seeing the images and reading the book, I can't believe I didn't connect the two in my head.
Oh, did you think it was just
But
like a sweetie?
yeah, and now you've said it, I think it was a few weeks ago though when I'd seen them, so it's been a while since I thought about it. But no, it's really blooming obvious.
Yeah, it's a little bag of blue
It's a
pills.
really good idea. That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So, what else? What other plans do you make for leading up to publication? Do you do something special for launch day?
Well, I've been very fortunate that I reached out to a lot of my author friends, because that's the other tip I would have for people. Just, for me, this is as much a creative exercise as it is a social social life, and I've
Yeah.
made loads of lovely, lovely friends over the 4 years almost that I've been in the crime scene, and who are all lovely people.
Yeah.
And so I sent out requests from people I admire and people I've met, and pretty much everybody said yes. They might not be able to read it in time for the launch, but they were definitely going to have a good crack at it. And I've had some
Mm.
really lovely, lovely support from people like Leslie Cara and Lauren North and Essie Lyons, who's one of my totally favorite authors, and Rob Parker, who we mentioned before, and Alex Chudley, and Caroline England, and well, I could go on, and that's been really wonderful to know that they have your back.
Mm.
But also, what's coming out loud and clear is that the book is really tense. Everybody's
The
like
big
tension.
tent.
There's a lot of tension. And then I'm going to be doing some ads, some Amazon ads also, which I haven't created yet. I'm going to be doing little social media things with all the quotes that, the friendly authors, people like Douglas Skelton, who then make dental jokes, in their quotes. He's so clever. And Gordon Brown as well. It's an amalgam of secrets and lies. His amalgam is obviously a dental word. And then I have on launch night, I'm being interviewed by Jackie Collins, Dr. Noir, for the Honey and Stag events, and certainly Kelly and Jackie have been tremendous supporters of mine and have
Mm.
been really wonderful to me over the years. And really, the Noir at the Bar, I think, is probably the first time I realized how friendly authors could be. And if anybody has a Noir at the Bar near them, I would really encourage them to go, because it's just such a fun thing to do, and such a loving environment.
I've got to say, actually, we've just mentioned Rob Parker again. He's started an event in collaboration with Manchester Libraries called Crime Central. If I'd have forgotten that, I'd have been in trouble. So that is, I believe, the 30th of this month. I will check. It's on a Thursday. I'll have a look at
It's a
the
Thursday, yeah.
calendar. And from it's an evening event, 6:30, and he has three authors on with him each time, and Chris MacDonald has already done it twice. So
Yeah, no, I saw Sarah Moorhead also, who's a great author, and
yeah,
that's an in-person event, and that's great. But those have kicked off again, and if anybody is near Manchester, then obviously that's what we're doing. Also, I went to Bay Tales
mm,
in February. That was the inaugural Bay Tales, and actually that was really nice. That was a one-day event. A whole bunch of us came the night before, had a slightly sore head in the morning. and But as an event, I mean, it was a fabulous lineup. Publishers put a panel together with Sarah Vaughan and Leslie Guerra and Lauren North, who I met there. But that's a really fun event, and I think that's coming back in March next year.
so do you all try to read each other's books as well
Yeah.
ahead of the events? I mean, it's a lot of reading when you've got live events as well.
Yeah, I don't think I would manage, you know, 10 books or something. But if I was to be on a panel at an event, I would absolutely read the other books. As and it was clear that they do when we do the events also. Uh, and I try to read my author buddies' books, but at the same time, there's just too many of them. And some of these are terribly prolific people like Jonathan Whitelaw. Shame on you. Too many.
He is everywhere.
Yeah.
He gets everywhere.
Yeah, no, they're great because they're all these little these cozies that he's got, and a great turn of phrase. I've always loved Jonathan's turn of phrase.
I was saying that Gumbir is my favourite character, who is Radha's dad. Do you have a favourite? Is that like asking you to pick a favourite child?
No, it's very simple. He is adorable. Uh, he just is just this elderly gentleman who has a funny sense of humor, who cares deeply about his family, who feels deep responsibility for his family. He's also, but at the same time, he's also this proud, dentist. He set up his clinic himself, and then that did very well, and he's got this nice house, and a very proud man, and you see that shining through in some of the things he does and says as well. He still goes and gets his lunch at the clinic every
Mhm.
day, because he kind of likes it there. But obviously, if you're in Radha's point of view, it's like, why is he here all the time? He's watching me, he's judging me. And he just basically said, well, he would like his lunch. So it is again that differing perspective on the same situation. But I just love him. There's a lot of my dad in him, I would say, and also a lot of my father-in-law. But yeah, it's just he makes me chuckle.
Did you always know before you started planning that Arjun was going to be just a lovely husband? It's not a spoiler because you've already
Yeah, no,
said it,
I've
so I
already
feel
said
like I can
his
ask
husband is
this.
nice. He's a bit. I mean, he could be a better husband in that he could be more clued into the struggles his
Yeah.
wife is under, but he's not a malevolent husband. Yeah, no, that was intentional. Again, there's a couple of things that I think about in advance of a book, which is obviously what's the theme, what would I like people to you know remember from this, learn if
Yeah.
in some situations. But I think I also set out to think about how is this different. My books are quite different, I think, than which is partly why they're hard to place on a shelf, and the industry doesn't really know what to do with them usually. But they're quite different, and I do that intentionally. So a dentist, that's weird, and it's not the husband, and the just kind of uh, different things that I do think about in advance.
We've had two questions that I've missed. So Agnieszka wants to know, did you have you ever written in your native language? And then Kaz wanted to know, would you translate your own books? So let's go with Aga's question first. Have you ever written in your native language?
No, because I didn't start writing until about 4 years ago, and 52 next year. So I did write when I was a student, in student things. I have a very bad poem out there somewhere, but
We have all got bad poems out there.
but I think the thing to know about me, probably that people don't realize, is I grew up abroad. So I'm the daughter of a diplomat, and we moved around every 3 years. And I sound American because I learned my English in America when I was 10 years old. And I went to a French school. So I never actually, even though we spoke Dutch at home, and I felt very Dutch because, I'm a diplomat child and I feel very Dutch. I never actually learned to write in Dutch. I was never schooled in Dutch.
Okay.
So I did go to university in the Netherlands, and that's really the first time that I had to start to learn to spell. I would write letters to my grandma, but they were really terrible letters. So I think that developed in Holland, and I did write some things, and you could tell that I could write, but I would find it quite difficult. I mean, I can write stories, and I work in Dutch sometimes, but to literary writing, I think I might struggle with. And I think translating also, I've been trying to even come up with what I would call "Stay Mad, Sweetheart" that would be as impactful in Dutch, and I think that would be quite a challenge. But I'd be very happy if we found foreign publishers who want to do the translation, and I would look over it in French, in Spanish, and in Dutch, and make sure that it's done well. But wouldn't do it myself.
Yeah, that's interesting. That so are your books actually out in other languages yet, or is that something that you're hoping to do
No,
in future?
well, the pandemic scuppered that, sadly. So Red Dog with Stay Mad, they had a bunch of meetings set up for London Book Fair. There was some real interest for a Polish um, publisher. I was very keen for it to go to South Korea and Japan because there's a big feminist movement. There's a lot of Me Too issues there, which the book is around the grey areas of harassment and discrimination and consent. But sadly, London Book Fair got nixed, and then those meetings just didn't go online. And once that momentum passes, I think it's very difficult to do. So it's
So how did you discover Red Dog Press? Because you've got the lovely Sean Coleman, great group of authors. Half of them are here, at least half of them are here watching. There may be more of them. You're all such a supportive group for each other. But how did you meet? How did you discover Red Dog Press in the first place?
Well, it was funny because I discovered them on Twitter um, when they were teasing Neil Lancaster.
Sounds about right.
And I thought, oh, and it was funny. It was really funny. I thought, oh, I wonder who this is. And so I checked him out, and then I sent same out to Sean, and he replied within 24 hours. Basically, that he wanted to read the rest of it, and he loved it, and oh my gosh, and that was a level of excitement in my work that I hadn't encountered yet. I was always, oh, this is really well written, but and this was like, give me more. I was not his first author, but I was his second author. And it's he just he is willing to take the risk of placing things that don't necessarily fit on a shelf, which very few others. I mean, Orenda does, also they have genre fluid kind of things, but and then because Red Dog's quite small still, I think, and maybe he just has great taste in people because we do have quite a tight grouping.
I have met a few people now at Crime Central. I keep going to call it something else and then stopping myself. And it's a really great bunch. So for anybody watching who hasn't been to a live event yet and would like to go to an in-person one, the one in Manchester, I think it's £6 to attend. People go on their own. It's a really warm and welcoming environment. It's really funny. Rob's hilarious. He's an excellent host. He's so good. And last month was Githa Lodge, Stuart Turton and Sarah Moorhead. And the four of them on stage was an absolute delight. So will we be getting you into Manchester at some point to join Rob?
It has been suggested. So yes, I would love that. Rob, if you're watching. But and also obviously Chris McDonald, Sean Coleman, and Rob Parker have the Blood Brothers podcast, which is also a joy to listen to. I'm not the most auditory person, so I don't tend to listen to podcasts, but I make an exception for them. And then you get to hear Rob's giggles, and they're the best.
Oh, that laugh. He has got an infectious laugh. And their big book Blowout that was on, it was the same weekend that I was at an event. And so I watched the Friday night, but the Saturday day we clashed, and I hadn't realised until, so I got to watch some anyway. So Jonathan Whitelaw was great. They were doing Desert Island Discs. Yes. So do you have, in aid of the fact that he's watching, do you have a Desert Island read? I'll let you pick more than one. I'm not mean.
No, it's fine. I think it's probably A Prayer for O and Me by John Irving. Now, would I be able to read it many more times? I'm not sure, but it is. I remember that being a book that I went, oh, wow, this is completely different, and this is really clever, and I didn't see that coming at all. And I don't know, it really ignited a period of intense reading when I was in my 20s, when I really didn't have any time, but I'm working very hard. So I have a fondness for that book that I carry with me, and probably that one. Bit old, but yeah, I like it.
You also had an event that I was invited to, but it clashed with something else and I couldn't go, with Sarah Moorhead. So tell us about what inspired you to kind of have that get together.
Oh, our secret party. The secret party.
Well, I think it's been well talked about by this point.
It was funny. No, she and I, the first rule of Crime Club is not to talk about Crime Club, but and that got a life of its own. It was very funny. I mean, Cher and I basically get along very well. Good Liverpoolian lady, and just blunt, and like Dutch people tend to be blunt and self-deprecating. And we were just desperate to see people. It had been so long that we arranged a party, and we started inviting the people that we liked, um, and then said, okay, well, you can invite more people, but then somebody needs to second that, and we're going to keep it a little bit close because we didn't want it to turn into an author event. It was just a private party, among friends. And then Sarah made this image for it, which was, Crime Club, the first rule is not to talk about it. And people genuinely started to think that they couldn't talk about it, which suited us because we wanted to keep it manageable. And it was going to be in Manchester, and then everybody had like booked hotels and stuff, and then the football came on. It was Manchester United, Manchester City, and the train tickets were terrible and the hotels were terrible, and so we moved it to Carlisle to still be somewhere. And my craving came, so that was the bonus there. But it was a little bit far for many people to come, and but yeah, that was just because so often, like at Harrogate and Buddy Scotland, which I go to as well, you see your friends and you see your friends briefly, but then there's panels to go to, and this was really just, can we just have a party with our mates?
It must have been nice to meet people that you hadn't been able to meet. We had 2 years really of not really being able to do anything. Couldn't leave our local areas, couldn't leave our houses, obviously, for a time. So lots of things like this were great, keeping people in touch online.
Yeah, and
But
I met quite a few new people also, and we started just I started also inviting people that I thought were interesting that I hadn't really engaged with very much, and I said, do you wanna? So Love from Rendsburg, for example, nobody writes him. She came all the way from London to Carlisle, and it was kind of her first awful thing because her book hadn't come out yet, and she was lovely, and we had a great time. But it was a small gathering.
can you tell us anything about the book that is out on submission at the moment?
Sure. It's called Killer Bodies, which is a little bit tongue in cheek because it's set in the gym of a apartment building, the private residence gym of an apartment building. So Killer Bodies. And it's a locked room mystery, and it is genuinely a locked room in that they become um, locked into this one gym, and people start dying, but we don't know how. So they just fall. And at first, the first one, obviously, people think it's a heart attack because that's what happens in the gym. And when the second one falls, and some other things happen, they start wondering what's going on. It's also one that doesn't have a police detective who, solves it at the end. It is all through the point of view primarily of Evie, who is the gym receptionist, who is a really fun character, and she draws manga, horror comics. And essentially, what happens is she starts to realize that the way these people are dying is very similar to her drawings, and her notebook is missing.
Oh, that's good.
So
That's very different.
yeah, it's well, and again, just can't help myself. I thought I'll do a locked room. They'll know how to put that on the shelf, and then the feedback again is, oh, what a brilliant book and what a great writer, but it's a little bit too funny, and it's for me it was, the movie Knives Out. Which was so that's with Daniel Craig, and it's like an Agatha Christie, um,
Right.
and it's a locked room thing, and but it's a little tongue in cheek, and it heralds back to the golden age where the locked rooms had some fairly crazy solutions, very contrived solutions, but that made it all the more fun. So it is a thriller. You do have a lot of acrimony in it, and it's a mystery because you want to know why these people are dying, how they're dying, and who did it. But there's also an undercurrent of this golden age of locked rooms out of kind of some respect, I guess.
What about future books? Have you got plans for more standalones or a series?
I haven't now. I think we're going to see how What I Hid from You goes. We're going to see how Pillow Buddies, goes, and then I just have to go on lots of walks because that's where the idea comes up. But I also need to do some real work and earn some money. So because I work on projects as a consultant, I will, when I'm not working, then I can write, and then sometimes I need to work. And I think it having been quite quiet since the pandemic started, I probably would get a proper job for a while as well. But yeah, no, watch this space. I don't know. It's definitely that's the one thing I don't plan in advance.
We're almost out of time, so I'm going to ask you two of our group's favourite questions. So one of them is, have you ever acted out a scene as you've written it? I'll give you the most recent one that stood out for me was Jane Isaac decided she wanted to test out some things that she'd used in her book to check that it was real. So they buried a pig's shoulder in concrete in the garden because they wanted to see if it would still be preserved a year later. And then one day they decided to dig it up. All the neighbours are out, it's a really sunny day, everyone's having barbecues. They dug it up and it was intact, but what they didn't realise was that as soon as the air hits it, it quickly starts to decompose. So they're desperately trying to get rid of this awful smell while the neighbours are having a barbecue.
Oh,
Now, I'm not expecting anything like that. Please tell me not that. But
I think
anything.
things like that I will research to the extent where you go, if fewer than the 10 people on the planet know the answer to this, it doesn't matter what I say. Um, I have asked my children to act out a fight scene. So I read out what happens, and then the arm and the head and the what, and they acted it out so that I could see whether that would work, and that was actually really good fun.
It was. Is that the kind of thing you'd normally do? Did they just think you just bonkers, mom? Is this usual behaviour for
Yeah,
you?
yeah, they just roll their eyes, but do it, bless them. And yeah, that's not the weirdest thing I've done with them.
The final question I'm going to ask before I ask you to give everyone a recap of what I hid from you is your memorable moments as an author so far.
Oh, now, I mean, the first big one was getting to be a Crime in the Spotlight author at Bloody Scotland 2018 because I had only just published In Servitude, which is self-published. I had submitted it. You submit like a 500 words from memory bit, and I chosen one where the C word was in it because I figured, this international crime festival in Scotland is going to be interested in a Dutch lady swearing on stage. What I didn't realize is the average age of the audience, and so there were 400 people. It was very full, and many of them had grey hair. And I'm standing there going, "Oh my God, I'm going to go, make this joke now because the C word's not just it's part of a joke." And so I'm standing there, my knees shaking, and I read my piece. And thankfully, they burst out laughing. But I think that was really the moment where I thought, "Gosh, this is amazing," and it was such a social and exhilarating event, and that's why I continue to write.
I love that. That is a completely different answer than we've had before, and I love it when that happens. We always get different answers. So give everyone a final reminder of what I hid from you.
All right, what I hid from you, hitting yourselves on Thursday, is got little pills because Radha becomes addicted to Valium. It is Radha thought she was her own worst enemy until the real one came after her.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I've had a wonderful hour with you. Thank you to all the members for coming and saying hello. And I hope you'll come back for the next book.
Happy to, always.
Fantastic. Thank you.